Be kind.
Be kind. So simple, right? Be kind. If people were more like that, we would live in a different world.
Amen.
And you know what that says? The second commandment. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Hello and welcome to another episode of Anchoring Hope, where we're shining the light by interviewing people that are really making this world a better place within their positions in the marketplace. And today we have with us Chad Wable. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be with you.
Chad, did I say your name properly?
You certainly did. I appreciate that too. When I was in college, David, I used to get all kinds of pronunciations of Wable, but Wobble is the most profound one. It seems like that's a northeast kind of thing, so I appreciate you getting that correct.
It was the grace of the Lord.
Amen.
I just took a shot. So Chad, can you tell me, where do you live and what do you do for a living?
I am the Chief President and Chief Executive Officer of Advanced Behavioral Health, which is a behavioral health company that manages, administrates, and is the fiduciary for several state and federal contracts.
So what nature are the contracts that you're managing?
Most of the contracts are dealing with, mental health and addiction and services for those in need that the state has to take care of, and they can't take care of all that on their own. So they put those out to bid to companies like us, and we win the state contracts to either administer a grant or be the fiduciary for a grant, or to do some level of care management, case management, social work, or behavioral health related services. The wonderful thing about us is we do so many different things to help people in need across the state of Connecticut in particular, which is where we're located. And it's wonderful to have such a breadth of services, from helping, foster kids get from place to place through transportation, or multi-systemic therapy for, kids in need, early childhood development programs that we have, what's called REP payee programs, or programs where we manage the money for those that are disabled or less fortunate. We help the state with that. And then we do some traditional case management and care management for the state. We also have a pretty large employee assistance program where we contract with employers all over the country, but specifically now here in the Northeast and in Connecticut, to do their crisis management and to augment the work that they do in HR.
That's amazing, Chad. That you must feel amazing every time you wake up and get to go to work, knowing that you really are making a difference, right?
Well, we pride ourselves on community impact. Community impact is what we talk about. I mean, I've just been here for just under a year, and it's complex when you have this many contracts. There's a level of certain complexity, but there's a joy that comes with it in terms of all of the great work that we're doing in each one of our individual programs. And one thing that I'm trying to do is bring a spirit of the totality of community impact that we make across all of our programs and services, so that we can demonstrate to our people, but also our clients and others as we grow and develop, that we're not only out there doing sort of God's work in a lot of ways, and helping those that are in need, but we're also trying to improve day by day, week by week, month by month, year over year.
That is amazing. Now, I imagine that in your industry, there's got to be companies that are just focused on one specific type of contract, but you guys are multidisciplinary, right?
We are. That's kind of our secret sauce and differentiator, and I am appreciative of the group of hospitals and I'll call them social service and behavioral health companies that sort of got together back in the late 90s when we were founded, and sort of created advanced behavioral health. Now we've evolved through the years from that, but they really saw something of importance to have a company that can be so multidimensional, that can address so many different things. And and therefore we tend to pride ourselves on creativity and innovation and being nimble in how we provide our services.
So, Chad, was the organization built by Christian people, or does it have like a Christian background, or is agnostic?
We actually don't have a Christian background. Myself personally, I come from Catholic healthcare. I spent most of my life in Catholic healthcare, so I appreciate faith-based organizations. We are not a faith-based organization. The spirit of our work, I always used to say, whether you're faith-based or not, when you get really sick and you're in the hospital, people tend to find their faith really quickly. Whether it's in a faith-based organization or not, and so I have kind of been able to see that both from inside of a faith-based organization, as well as from the outside. I mean, our work here though is very much centered, like I said, around behavioral health and sort of social work, and counseling in many ways. So we see the best of the best and the worst of the worst on a daily basis.
It's gotta be incredible, Chad. And how did you get into that line of work? Because you said you came from a Catholic based organization, right?
Yeah, so I spent most of my career in as a hospital health system administrator. Started in West Virginia, and then I joined a company called St. Mary's Health System in Waterbury, Connecticut, where I, after about 5 or 6 years of doing various administrative work there, became the president and CEO of that health system. And I was there for about 15 years at St. Mary's. That was a diocesan hospital, sponsored by the Archdiocese of Hartford. And my boss was the Archbishop of Hartford. And so I learned a lot about Catholic healthcare. I learned a lot about faith-based healthcare there. And then we merged our health system into Trinity Health, which is the national company. And I helped with that transition and became the Chief Operating Officer of Trinity Health of New England, the regional enterprise. And then I left there and had some travels down to Dallas, Texas, and up to Boston, Massachusetts, with a couple health systems, and wanted to get back closer to my family and home. And a recruiter that I'd known through the years called me, and it seemed like a wonderful opportunity that allows me to spend time with my family and get a little balance in my life, and really still make a difference and have an impact on people. And that was important to me, and so that's how I got to where I am.
I was just reading the Bible yesterday, and I read that passage that said, if you abide in me, I will abide in you, and then my Father will give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah,
this is the real example, right? Like, you felt away from your family, you were making an impact in your previous job, but you really had that void because of your excessive travel. And the way that I understood that is like the Lord sent you a recruiter that got you back closer to your family is still making an impact, isn't it?
It could be that way for sure. I mean, there's divine intervention in some of these things, and some things are hard to explain. And I'm a religious and faithful person personally, and believe that God has a plan, and that must have been his plan, and here I am. And so I'm trying to make the most of the path I have in front of me.
It's beautiful, Chad. Psalm 139 says that the Lord the Lord wrote a book and made every page about our life before we were born. It's in Psalm 139. When I discovered that, I am like, now it's up to us if we want to leave those pages or not, because we have free will. So, for example, for me, I was like the people of Israel. To cross the desert into the promised land, I think it's about 40 days. It took them 40 years because they wouldn't get it. So another round and another round. So I actually was 30 years in the wilderness myself until I came to the will of God. Now I'm living every day based on that book that he wrote about me. And so when you live on that faith, it's beautiful because you know that it doesn't matter what comes your way. If you're surrendered to the Lord, you know that he's doing his will in your life. So it releases the stress.
Yeah, and at times things can be stressful. It's there's no question. There's a lot of stressful moments, and you have to be grounded in your beliefs and your faith, and that's what helps you sort of get through and move on. And I'm blessed with a family and faith, and I think it helps each day and each week to try to be a little better. It's we talk about as a company being better each day, each week, each month, and we ourselves have to be sort of living examples of that. And we fall down too, and that's part of the growth process.
For sure. Chad, the supernatural ways that God does things, sometimes it just amazes me. I'm going to tell you a story because back to you getting a job closer to your family, right? We decided to go on a trip to Thailand with my wife and my 2 kids. My daughter was like 13 years old back then. And so we took the trip. The flight from Toronto to Bangkok was like crazy, right? With one layover, it was like a 24-hour ordeal. As soon as we got into the plane from Toronto to Amsterdam, when we did the layover, my daughter started to feel sick, and she started to sweat, and she had pains. It was very uncomfortable for her, so we kept giving her water. We jumped in the second plane into Bangkok. To make the long story short, by the time we landed in Bangkok, she was about to faint, and she had terrible back pain. So we went to the hotel that we were staying, and she looked like she was going to be collapsing pretty soon, and we didn't know what to do. We didn't know the place, we didn't know the language, complete foreign land. And then I asked the hotel, the guy that checks you in, and he's like, my daughter is really sick. She got sick on the plane. Where can we take her to see a doctor? And he's number one, the guy spoke perfect English. Obviously, it was a hotel, right? But it wasn't a luxury hotel. It was a very backpackers hotel, down the road. So he spoke English, and he said, there is a Christian hospital, and this is the address. Tell them that I sent you. We got into a cab. We took my baby daughter to that hospital. They took us seeing like it was a miracle. And once we got in, she got admitted right away into the emergency room. Turns out she had an advanced kidney infection. And she ended up 3 days in that hospital. But you know what? They came around to pray for her 3 times a day while she was getting recovered. And some of the people spoke English. We felt so loved by the Lord. And little did I know that Thailand has less than 1% of the population as Christian, either Catholic or any other type of denomination. Less than 1%. And the Lord sent us to a Christian hotel where they could speak our language, but they also prayed for her. Isn't that a miracle?
It is. And I've seen it in practice myself again when I was in those settings, and certainly appreciate the power of that. And I appreciate the other thing is you learn that at the end of the day, a hospital is a hospital regardless of its faith or creed or beliefs, where hospitals, at least in America, are there to take care of everyone regardless of their situation and their beliefs and their religion and what have you. And that probably gave me as much joy as anything else is that. I will tell you, I became very close with a Hasidic population from New York that moved up to Waterbury, Connecticut, and most of the care at the time in Waterbury was with a hospital. For the Jewish population was with a hospital down the road from us, because we were Catholic. And not soon after they got there, did most of them switch their orientation to our hospital, even though we were Catholic. Now, we made some provisions, that were respectful for them, but we ended up being sort of the hospital of choice for a group of people that that didn't necessarily see the world exactly the way that we did, but knew that we were there to take care of them regardless of their beliefs or situation. And to me, that's probably one of the more gratifying things that I can say I was part of. And it's what defines a little bit of the American healthcare system, honestly, is that.
Well, you're supposed to shine the love of God through your actions, not only your words, right? They asked Jesus what was the two greatest commandments, and he said, love your God with all your might, all your flesh, all your soul and your spirit, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And your neighbor could be Jewish, could be Hindu, could be Buddhist, your neighbor could be anybody. But that love that God gave you for free, that's the love that you need to give to the other person. And by being kind and really loving unconditionally, like a hospital does, that's how you share the love of Jesus Christ. Right?
I agree. And it's, it's harder and more complex these days, and the media and social media and everything else that we have out there makes it harder and harder for us. And it's the more reason why we need to continue to sort of raise up, our own beliefs around that, which is really just a sense of care and kindness and support that we should all have in that field. And it's really what most healthcare professionals were, called to, was their notion of helping others that are in need, and regardless of who they are and how they are and what they are. And I think, again, that's a very special thing that you can see in the healthcare field. I will say that it definitely is amplified, and becomes even more important when you're in a faith-based setting, I will tell you. Having been on both sides of it, there's definitely like you said, a sense of security and a sense of calm and a sense of comfort that, a lot of people, not just those that share that faith or are faithful or Christian, but a lot of people feel when they're in that type of facility.
We have where I live. It's a small town, so we only have two hospitals. One is a secular hospital. The other one is Catholic hospital or Christian hospital. It's called St. Mary's. My dad passed away 8 years ago, and he started going to the first hospital. But then, because of his condition, he was referred to the Christian hospital because of the specialization. And we saw a huge difference in the way people behaved. The staff, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everybody there is Christian.
No.
Because they're not. But just by going to a place that is called St. Mary's Hospital, and going there and knowing that a lot of the folks there are Christian and they actually share the love without even talking about their faith. My dad I saw a huge difference in the service, in the attendance. And here in Canada, we don't pay for, everybody pays for healthcare because it's socialized, which is one of the worst things you can do, by the way, because I'm not going to talk about that because I'm not going to that rabbit hole. But anyways,
that's a long podcast.
Yeah, that will be a 2-hour podcast. But nevertheless, he was very well taken care of in the second hospital. Yeah. The first hospital was good too, but there was something different. I don't know what it was, but the love, I could feel the care and the love more in the other staff than in the secular hospital.
Yeah, there is a difference. I mean, you said it. I mean, I think people can feel it. You feel it. I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's like, when someone says, what's the culture of the organization? Well, I mean, sometimes that's hard to put into words, but you can feel what it is. You can feel the culture of an organization, and that's what you felt. You felt the culture of the organization, which is, has a lot of underpinnings to it. Probably, 50 to 100 years of the way that they've done what they've done that has, manifested itself in what you felt and what I felt, when I was part of a faith-based organization.
I believe it's the power of prayer, because people pray on those places. People pray. The ones that believe, they pray, and they pray, and you can feel the difference. It's the same with us in the Thai hospital, right? Like, we felt so out of place. We didn't know where we were. We didn't know the language, and then we go to the safe haven, and people actually came and prayed for us.
It's interesting because when I, most Catholic hospitals in America, they, pray before almost every meeting. Now, it's interesting that there's been a dilutive effect, I think, over time, because people are afraid to say that they pray. It's an interesting thing. So most of these faith-based hospitals, they call them reflections now, because they're, again, I think it's a play on words, but it's interesting that you say that, because I think there's this known, well, that's the main differentiator. What you said is that, people in those facilities that are sponsored by whatever Catholic or faith-based organization that they might be sponsored by, they're expected to follow their sensibilities, whatever their sensibilities are. And in a Catholic facility, it's really to pray, and to pray before every meeting. And, I've seen over the years that I was in Catholic healthcare, that's been diluted somewhat.
It's the culture, right?
And I think that's something that we need to recognize a bit, because I don't see why it's a problem to stand for what we've known as good and right. And that doesn't mean everyone has to do it or participate in it. No one's forcing anyone to do anything. But it's part of that culture, and it makes a difference.
For sure. Chad, what has been the biggest problem in your life, and how did you overcome it?
The biggest problem in my life? Oh my goodness. That's a tough question, David. I mean, for me, probably, I had to get a hip replacement when I was about 40 years old. And I was a very, very active and competitive person. I played competitive sports in college, and I, always wanted to compete and do that. And I, when I sort of started to, I guess, things started to break, and I had a hip replacement, and now I'm facing a second hip replacement, this year, quite frankly. It's hard to sort of not be able to do the things that brought you joy and was a place where you could take stress away and what have you. And that's whether that's the hardest thing, I'd say that's something that has evolved over time to be a challenge for me, mentally and otherwise, physically, mentally, and otherwise. But honestly, the hardest thing was probably losing my mother a few years ago, 4 years ago. That was probably the hardest thing in my life. Yeah.
It's hard to go through a loss like that. I remember when my dad passed away. I mean, I have experienced death in the family before, but I was very close to my dad, and when he passed away, I was in shock. I couldn't cry for like a month. I just didn't cry. And then little by little, I could actually start mourning for him until the feeling went away. But prayer helped a lot.
Yeah.
And knowing that he went to be with the Lord, right? That he's in a better place. And see, and you go back to faith again, right?
Yeah, it's up again. You kind of lean on that a little bit, but it's hard. I was fairly close and talked frequently with even though I was away and what have you, we had a strong relationship. So it was a challenge.
Chad, what's in the future for you?
Oh, I'm looking forward to what I just started here with, professionally here with this company and what we can do to make a huge, impact on the world and at least, locally and hopefully regionally and nationally and even beyond. But I think, we're just getting started, and that's exciting. And so that's an exciting, future professionally. And then, personally, honestly, I'm looking forward to sort of getting my hip fixed and getting back and being much more active. And, I'm, like I said, I traveled a lot and was away for a period of time. And so now I'm able to spend a lot more time with family and friends and do the things that I want to do, just being more active.
There's hope for you because, number one, you know how to run a successful organization. I'm sure you're going to be successful with this one too. And I can see in your spirit that what you want is impact more people, which is the right way to do it, right? Number two, regarding your hips, I had one of my mentors, he's the one that got me into business. And he also taught me how to play squash. He was so good at playing squash that he could win games against me with his left hand, and he was right-handed.
Oh my God.
That's how good he was. And so we used to go play squash at least 3 times a week when we were working together. And then I lost connection from him. And then we talked about 10 years later. He told me, I asked him, do you still play squash? And he said, yeah, but a little bit slower. And I asked, why? Well, I had both my hips replaced.
Oh.
It was like you.
Yeah.
He said after he went through rehab, he's up to 70% of his capacity from before. But he was actively rehabilitating with his new hips. So yeah, he's not the same as he was before, but he's still active.
There's hope for me, right?
Oh, of course there is. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. That's good.
I think the secret is go back slowly, do your rehab and go back slowly. And the human body is amazing. It's a miracle.
It's amazing.
How it adapts, right?
Well, I went through it once with my other hip, so I know how quickly you can respond and get back. And I'm sure, as we age, it's not going to be as quick, but I'm excited to actually get there. There's no one wants to have their hip ripped out and something else put back in there.
The thought of it is like so scary.
But it's but when you've been there and you've seen the positive impact of it and that the pain sort of goes away, then it's pretty great, pretty awesome.
That's amazing, Chad. More than half an hour has gone by already, and I know you are a busy executive, and I want to honor your time, and I want to really thank you for being with me. And the truths that we spoke about, I know is going to enlighten a lot of people that listen to this podcast. Sure. So I'm going to ask you one last question before we finish.
Yeah.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write on it?
Be kind.
Be kind. So simple, right? Be kind. If people were more like that, we would live in a different world.
Amen.
And you know what that says? The second commandment: love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of good things that come with that. And so I've learned a lot of things, but the simple things we forget so quickly. And I think that's the reason why I said that, because there's a lot of complex things that you could say, but I think the simple things make a much broader impact and do more. And I think there's an opportunity for all of us to get back to sort of the simple things that matter sort of more than some of these other things that are being done.
And I think the simple things and the little decisions that you make in your daily life is what creates your actual life experience. And the impact is huge. I was watching on the weekend this movie called The Shift. If you haven't watched it, go watch it with your family. It's amazing. The Shift. It's I think you can rent it on YouTube. And basically the idea of the movie is that every little decision that you make has 1 million implications in your future. So that if you have kindness in your core before you make a decision, if you realize that the way that you make that decision is going to impact not only you but all the people around you, if you are kind to other people, you're going to make a better decision, which is going to bring forward a better future for you and your loved ones.
Yep, I agree.
Right?
Well said.
Yeah, thank you so much. If people like to follow you, are you on LinkedIn, or where can they find you?
One more time on that. I didn't hear that.
If people like to ask you more questions or get to know more about you, are you on LinkedIn?
Yes. Anyone can hit me on LinkedIn at any time. That would probably be the best place to do that.
Fantastic, Chad. Thank you so much for your time. God bless, and I'll see you around.
Thank you very much, David. God bless you, and best to you, and good luck.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for watching another episode of Anchoring Hope, where we're shining the light in these last days and hoping for the best, because the best is in the Bible. Please share this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also check other social media for more content. And as always, remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and I love you too.